Hello there. Today, I'm going to be reading one of my all-time favourites. Many regard this as a modern classic. So I'm not actually sure why I haven't read this particular book on my channel before, but as I've just reached 30,000 subscribers on YouTube, I thought, hey, it's now or never, rather sooner than late. Let's give it a go. So I've always felt a little bit of pressure when reading certain works, when they're particularly famous, much loved. Perhaps there's a very popular film adaptation affiliated with the original piece of literature. So there's going to be a lot of people walking around with high expectations, ideas of how they see this coming to life from the silver screen to a narrator. There's a lot of pressure on the narrator. But as I said, it's a special occasion, reaching that 30,000 subscriber milestone. So I thought I would be brave, really. And like I said at the beginning, as this is a real favourite, a book that's very close to my heart, I thought that I had to do it, and I want to do it justice. So today I'm going to be reading to you this Z97 S02 user guide for the MSI motherboard. And as you can see on the front cover here as well, top quality and stability MIL STD 810G certified components. This is a military class 4 motherboard that we're talking about today. So I'm just gonna open her on up here. It's a beautiful presentation in this particular copy as well, I've got to say. We have the preface here for the 797 series 2, I believe it is, motherboard, and the serial number down at the bottom there. So I'm not going to read the whole preface to you, but there are a couple of highlights that I just wanted to pick up on before I got to the real heart, the real meat of the book. A little bit further in, we see chapter 1 here, getting started. But like I said, there's just a couple of points that I didn't want to miss. I thought the preface was very, very nicely written. So I just want to hold this page open. I think that little rubber will do the trick. Because I also just thought it would be nice to take some notes on some of the key points that we might encounter here. I'm obviously very familiar with the book, so but so some of you might be new to this one. But for me, this is it's so nostalgic. I mean, I actually purchased this, I remember, in 2014, I believe it was. And the second I see the cover, it just brings me right back. It's heartwarming stuff. So I do have this rather nice little pen here. Do also have a rather nice pencil as well, and you see the rubber and the pencil sharpener. So this is very nice, as you can see, has been used before. But I did notice that the pencil was a little blunt. So perhaps I've never actually used this. It is straightforward though. It is just your standard insert and rotate manual pencil sharpeners. So I'll just leave that there. But this is an adequate point, I think you'll agree, for most tasks. So as I said, I am rather familiar with this magnum opus. So I am aware that there are a couple of things that I would probably like to make a note of for later consultation. Sometimes it's nice to make notes. As a narrator myself as well, it might just help me to remember certain things that I would like to focus on when editing. In some cases, maybe for character development, a certain plot point that I feel is developing, something that needs a little bit of concentration. So I just wanted to cover the safety instructions here. I don't normally annotate directly on the book, but in this case, it's a special video, so I will make that exception. So let's just get started. I'll let the author do the work. We have some bullet points here. Always read the safety instructions carefully. So let's follow that advice. As you see here, page 4 of the preface, safety instructions. Point 1, always read said safety instructions carefully. Keep this user's manual for future reference. I mean, honestly, if I was purchasing a motherboard, a refrigerator, a tumble dryer, microwave, I wouldn't even for a moment consider disposing of the user manual. Of course, you're going to require it for future reference, and most often than not, I won't even use an appliance unless I have first read the user manual. I'm not going to take that risk 9 times out of 10. And here we have it. So, motherboard, user manual, it's essential. So we're now talking about the motherboard itself, not the user manual. Just bear that in mind. It says, keep this equipment away from humidity. I would personally also keep the user manual away from high humidity, very, very humid environments, because it is made from paper, so it's going to be rather absorbent, and you don't want to spoil these lovely crisp pages here. So it depends. You could interpret it either way. It's like like a piece of fine poetry. You know, you can read into it. I'm not going to say anything, but there's often different ways to interpret what you see. And in this case, I would say we were speaking about the motherboard, but if you were to apply the same logic to the user manual, no harm, no foul. Lay this equipment on a reliable, quite an important word there. So this is not any old flat surface, a reliable flat surface before setting it up, the motherboard. But again, I do like to take precautions, and I have a very reliable flat surface set up for the reading of the user manual, and I could also use this very same reliable flat surface for the setting up of said equipment, the motherboard in this case as well. So it's a very adaptable and reliable flat surface. And next point, the openings on the enclosure are for air convection, hence protects the equipment from overheating. Do not cover the openings. Okay, so at this point, this might not make a lot of sense to you, but if you have the motherboard in front of you, and later on we will be identifying various elements of the motherboard, so this will make more sense later on as we delve into, I think it is covered in chapter 1 actually, but currently we are aware at the very least that you absolutely under no circumstances should cover the openings on the motherboard enclosure. So I will make a note of that, as it is in capital letters. Just find a nice space. So it is 0.5 of the safety, but I'm just going to put so we have, should I use the, oops, ever so sorry, should I use the full title here? Perhaps I should. Yes. So we have, when consulting these notes later, I really don't want any misunderstanding. So we have the Z 97S 02, I believe that is. Motherboard. User guide. And this is, of course, from MSI. So if you were to have various motherboards lying around, and if you were to come across this very same code here, it's very important to make sure that you're specifically mentioning the manufacturer. So nice to just lay things out there, so there can't be any confusion. Let's delve back in. So, safety instructions. And it was the 5th bullet point there. So, safety instructions. And I feel that I don't need to capitalize it, just because it is only fundamental points that I am making a note of here. So won't be using the uppercase font, but I will be copying this down word for word. I did think about putting an exclamation mark at the end there, but it's very direct. I think I will get the point, even if I was to refer to this some years into the future. So moving on, make sure the voltage of the power source is at 110/220 volts, the V there, before connecting the equipment to the power inlet. Next bullet point, place the power cord such a way that people cannot step on it. I mean, in this point, they specifically mention people. I think you could argue a point that you would probably want to place the power cord such a way that anything cannot step on it. So I would argue people, animals, robots. I mean, anything capable of stepping, because I mean, it's going to be a trip hazard, and B, you could cause damage either to the power cord or to the actual equipment that the power cord is attached to, thus causing damage to the plug socket, the power point. So I don't like to. This is the thing often, like when I narrate, you do find yourself sort of critiquing things as you go, even if it's a particularly famous piece of work, one of the classics, or a much loved modern piece of literature. Sometimes you can't help but just reflect on certain things, and this is one of those. I would say, you probably don't want cats tripping over it or anything, so just be as careful as you can when placing the power cord. Is obviously what they're trying to say here. Not trying to step on the feet of the author, of course, here. I mean, all respect. So continuing the point, do not place anything over the power cord. You see there, they were very careful to really cover all possibilities, and that's, I guess, what I was trying to suggest with the first sentence of the 7th bullet point here. Moving on, always unplug the power cord before inserting any add-on card or module. All cautions and warnings on the equipment should be noted. Never pour any liquid into the opening that can cause damage or cause electrical shock. So strictly no pouring of any liquid that can cause damage or cause electrical shock. So, I mean, if there's a specific liquid that you feel you can pour into the opening that will not cause damage either to the equipment or to yourself or others, or cause electrical shock to yourself or to others, then I guess that's a different case. But if I would really say, if you have any doubt whatsoever, refrain from pouring liquid into the opening. I mean, pouring liquid on the motherboard itself, again, it's one of those things. I mean, life finds a way sometimes, doesn't it, of causing all sorts of inconveniences. Liquids do get spilt. But if we move on, if any of the following situations arises, so I feel that this is, we're harking back to this previous point here. So I felt like we can just move on. They are getting more specific here. So if any of the following situations arises, get the equipment checked by service personnel. They do specifically highlight service personnel. So getting it checked by the guy that you just met down at the bus stop. Make sure that you check first that he is a fully qualified member of service personnel. Just because he says he's right good with motherboards and he'll sort it out, I would I would stick very closely to the safety instructions here. I would follow their advice and make sure that if these sorts of situations do arise, that you're getting the equipment checked by the proper person, as it were. So here are the following situations. That may arise. We hope they won't arise, of course. The power cord or plug is damaged. Liquid has penetrated into the equipment. The equipment has been exposed to moisture. The equipment does not work well, or you cannot get it work according to user's manual. Interesting use of English grammar here. The equipment has been dropped and damaged. The equipment has obvious sign of breakage. Okay, so these are very important sub-points here. And then finally, last but not least, do not leave this equipment, and this is capitalized, in an environment above 60 degrees Celsius, centigrade, relatively synonymous, which translates, so to speak, to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. It may damage the equipment. So, under no circumstances should the motherboard, the equipment, be in what we would regard as hot temperatures. You could say very hot temperatures by human standards. So I will make a note. I say by human standards, I mean, if I was a cup of tea, I would be regarded as somewhat tepid at 60 degrees centigrade. As a human, and I'm not talking about my core body temperature here, I'm saying if I am a human out and about, and the air temperature is above 60 degrees centigrade, I'm going to say that's an extremely hot day. So if you happen to be somewhere on the planet Earth that is above 60 degrees centigrade, I would actually describe that as a hazardous environment as a human. And if you do find yourself in that situation, under no circumstances should you leave your motherboard lying around. Or you could also say it's strongly not advised to even have the motherboard in your pocket as you're walking around. So even though you're in the, it would be shaded from being in the pocket out of the direct sun, and probably somewhat cooler than the outside air temperature. It's just not an ideal place whatsoever. So I am going to make a note of that point, also with it being capitalized. So do not leave this equipment in an environment above 60 degrees centigrade, the equivalent of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. It may damage the equipment. Okay, so important points there. So we've come to the end of the safety instructions. Going to just skim over the FCCB radio frequency interference statement. Moving on past CE conformity. Like I said, I'm not going to cover the entire preface. There's just a couple of fundamental points that I thought you'd find particularly interesting. So again, skimming over, passing by the radiation exposure statement, the European Community Compliance Statement, the Taiwan wireless statements, likewise for the Japanese variant and Korean variant. The battery information, though, did have a rather notable point. It does specify here, the author says, caution in capitals. So, caution itself it's a rather delicate word in an emergency situation, or in dangerous situations. If you would say caution, it's something to consider, certainly, but it's not. It doesn't suggest impending danger or a significant warning. However, if we read a little bit closer here, it does say there is a risk of explosion if battery is incorrectly replaced. So I must say that when I first read this back in 2014, that really did strike me as a fundamental issue here. So I will be making a note of that. Continuing, replace only with the same or equivalent type, we're talking about the battery here, recommended by the manufacturer. So I will make a note of that. So it is under battery information. And I will get this word for word. And I will capitalize here as well, as the point itself is written in lowercase. So I will keep the capitals here, the uppercase here, just to make sure that one's eye is drawn to the point when moving through the notes. So there is a risk of explosion if battery is incorrectly replaced. And I won't write out the second sentence, although I will just make a little reference here. See preface for more information. I mean, personally, I can trust myself to remember the finer point here, really, that when they're saying incorrectly replaced, we're not just talking about how the battery is physically placed into the equipment, but also that incorrectly in this sense is also a reference to using a battery of perhaps a third-party manufacturer. So we must we must basically make the point here, the connection, that it must not be incorrectly replaced in any way, shape or form. And then we have chemical substances information, and this rather charmingly named statement, the WEEE, which of course stands for the Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment statement. The WEEE statement. And I will choose the English here to read to you today. We have the German, the French, Russian, etc. To protect the global environment, and as an environmentalist, MSI must remind you that under the European Union, EU, Directive on Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment, Directive, I imagine this is 2002, so 2002/96 EC, which takes effect on August 13th, 2005, 2005, I guess you could also say, products of, and I quote, electrical and electronic equipment cannot be discarded as municipal wastes anymore, and manufacturers of covered electronic equipment will be obligated to take back such products at the end of their useful life. MSI will comply with the product take-back requirements at the end of life of MSI branded products that are sold into the EU. You can return these products to local collection points. So, very important that if one does need to dispose of the product, that you follow the current directive in accordance to the EU Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment Statement. And obviously, I was very pleased to see that MSI, as environmentalists, are considering this as a very important issue. You know, it must be taken seriously. And here we have the contents, and we are moving closer. I must say, I just want to make sure there wasn't anything that I missed there. I don't think so. But we are getting to the good stuff, so to speak. And I'm absolutely delighted. I'm proud, really, to present the book proper. Chapter 1 of the Z97S02 Motherboard User Guide by MSI. Getting started. Thank you for choosing the Z97S02 series, MS7821, V2.X, ATX motherboard. The Z97S02 series motherboards are based on Intel Z97 Express chipset for optimal system efficiency. Designed to fit the advanced Intel LGA 1150 processor, the Z97 S02 series motherboards deliver a high-performance and professional desktop platform solution. Packing contents. Motherboard, drivers and utilities disk, SATA cable, I/O shield, and motherboard user guide. Optional accessories: USB 3.0 bracket, M connector, SLI cable. Please note, these pictures are for reference only and may vary without notice. The packing contents may vary according to the model you purchased. If you need to purchase the optional accessories or request part numbers, please visit the MSI website at http:// www.msi.com/index.php, or consult the dealer. Assembly precautions. The components included in this package are prone to damage from electrostatic discharge, ESD. Please adhere to the following instructions to ensure successful computer assembly. Always turn off the power supply and unplug the power cord from the power outlet before installing or removing any computer component. Ensure that all components are securely connected. Loose connections may cause the computer to not recognize a component or fail to start. Hold the motherboard by the edges to avoid touching sensitive components. It is recommended to wear an electrostatic discharge, ESD, wrist strap when handling the motherboard to prevent electrostatic damage. If an ESD wrist strap is not available, discharge yourself of static electricity by touching another metal object before handling the motherboard. Store the motherboard in an electrostatic shielding container or an anti-static pad whenever the motherboard is not installed. Before turning on the computer, ensure that there are no loose screws or metal components on the motherboard or anywhere within the computer case. Do not use the computer in a high-temperature environment. Do not boot the computer before installation is completed. This could cause permanent damage to the components as well as injury to the user. If you need help during any installation step, please consult a certified computer technician. Important. A screwdriver, not included, may be required for computer assembly. And I will actually just make a note of that. Important. A screwdriver. Not included. It is a little bit of a shame actually that the screwdriver isn't included, but can't have everything. May be required for computer assembly. So, always good to have a screwdriver handy, actually. And here we have a long list of motherboard specifications. Absolutely vital information, but as it's presented in two large tables, it's one of those things where I think it's like the Mona Lisa. You know, you have to see it to really get the most value out of it. Even a picture online, it's not going to quite do it justice. And of course, I could read out the specifications to you, but it's a little dry. It's a slightly drier part of this first chapter. So I mean, I'll run over the headings, and if you would like me to read out the exact specifications, please let me know down in the comments, and I can always add that to a future video. Or I can, I should really take a picture of this and upload it online, and then you have that quick reference, because although it doesn't quite do it justice as actually having the pages in front of you as I have here, but at least you can quite easily refer to the motherboard specifications if you require more information about that. But the headings run as follows: computer support, CPU support, chipset, memory support, expansion slots, multi-GPU support, storage, USB, audio, LAN, LAN, back panel connectors, internal connectors, I/O controller, hardware monitor, BIOS features, special features, software, and form factor. And it actually says at the bottom there, the author did make sure to include a couple of website links, so you can get latest information about CPU from the msi.com/CPU support website, or if you require more information on compatible components, you can visit the msi.com/test report website. And then we move on to a beautiful image under Connectors Quick Guide. So we here have an image of all potential connectors on the motherboard. And across the page it says Connectors Reference Guide. And here we have a list under the port name of each of the different ports that the motherboard contains. And across from there in the table we have port type, and then the page reference number for more information on each of these ports. And so, turning the page, we reach the first type of port, which is the back panel, located in the top left-hand corner of the motherboard. So there are sort of 5 or 6 principal components of the back panel, and we will just go into a little bit more detail. There are 6. We'll go into a little bit more detail on each of those here. So we have a diagram of the 6 subcomponents of the back panel, and we have some bullet points here just briefly describing each one of those. So on the left here we have the PS2 keyboard or mouse combo port, which is a combination of PS2 mouse/keyboard DIN connector for a PS2, which is this is PS/2, which is registered. By the way, there is the little R sign with the circle around it there. For a PS2, this is not to be confused with a PlayStation 2, by the way. This is a completely different component. For a PS/2 mouse/keyboard. The second subcomponent of the back panel, clear CMOS button. There is CMOS RAM present on board that is powered by an external battery to store system configuration data. Using CMOS RAM, the system can automatically boot into the operating system, OS, every time it is turned on. If you wish to clear the system configuration, press the button to clear the data. The third component, coaxial S/PDIF out. This SPDIF, Sony and Philips Digital Interconnect Format connector, is provided for digital audio transmission to external speakers through an coaxial cable. Then we have the optical SPDIF out. This SPDIF, Sony and Philips Digital Interconnect Format connector, is provided for digital audio transmission to external speakers through an optical fiber cable, as opposed to an coaxial. And it is written as an coaxial cable, by the way. So, and then the fifth port here is a USB 2.0 port. The USB 2.0 port is for attaching USB 2.0 devices, such as keyboard, mouse, or other USB 2.0 compatible devices. Then we have the USB 3.0 port, and here the USB 3.0 port is backward compatible, a useful feature, I must say, with USB 2.0 devices. It supports data transfer rate up to 5 gigabits. So it says it supports data transfer rate up to 5 gigabit per second, I believe this is here. So 5 capital G lowercase bit /s, and then in brackets there, super speed, close brackets. And so then underneath these 6 bullet points here of the back panel quick guide, it states, important, in order to use USB 3.0 devices, you must connect to a USB 3.0 port. If a USB cable is used, it must be USB 3.0, so not 2.0, 3.0 compliant. Okay, so an important point there. And there are actually ports within some of the ports. So although there are 6 main areas shown within the back panel up in the top left of the motherboard here, there are certain elements contain multiple ports. So we're still actually on the 4th of the 6. So the USB 3.0 port also sits with a LAN port, an LAN port. So that is the next point. And here it says the standard RJ45 LAN jack is for connecting to a local area network. LAN, LAN, as it is commonly described as. There are certain acronyms out there that you just use it so commonly you don't even think about what it might stand for, and this is one of those, I think. So you don't even need to say LAN. You just say LAN. But with USB, people do say USB. We don't say USB. So sometimes it's just down to sort of the phonetics behind the acronym, really. But in this case, LAN, most people will just say LAN. But I had forgotten, I must admit, that LAN does stand for Local Area Network. Yeah, I've had many a enjoyable LAN video game session back as a child and into my early teens. But I digress. And then underneath there we have a closer view of the LAN port in image format with some description of specific types of LED, which, although not stated here, an LED, that stands for a light emitting diode. Another one of these acronyms used very commonly. I imagine most of you are aware with the full term light emitting diode, but I do believe they're generally referred to as LEDs as opposed to LEDs. Perhaps that sounds a little bit confusing. So we have 2 types of LED within the LAN port. There is the link/activity LED, and then there's the speed LED. And the LED can have various status: off, yellow, or blinking for the link activity LED, and off, green, and orange for the speed LED. And then basically there's a description to inform you as to what each of those LEDs is signifying. So I feel we can move on to the audio ports. So here, the last of the ports within the back panel, the audio ports, which actually have their own separate component within the back panel. The audio ports are not shared with any other port, so you do find 2 USB 2.0 ports actually alongside the PS2 keyboard and mouse combo port. Likewise, the optical SPDIF out is alongside the coaxial SPDIF, my apologies, out. But the audio ports, of which there are 6, do actually have their own separate element. So audio ports, these connectors are used for audio devices. The colour of the jack, which is the opening, refers to the function of the connector. And as I said, we have 6. Blue line in, used for connecting external audio outputting devices. Green line out, used as a connector for speakers sound line out in 2 or 4 or 5.1 or 7.1 channel mode or headphone. Then we have pink mic, used as a connector for a microphone. Black RS out, rear surround sound line out in 4, 5.1 or 7.1 channel mode. And then we have orange CS out, center or subwoofer line out in 5.1 or 7.1 channel mode. And then last but not least, grey, which is SS out, side surround sound line out in 7.1 channel mode. And then we move on to the CPU, which, as many of you all know, stands for the Central Processing Unit. But I am going to leave us on a little bit of a cliffhanger today, because the CPU section of Chapter 1 is actually one of my favourite parts of the chapter, and we've already had a lovely introduction through the preface, and we've covered the first part of Chapter 1, covered various elements there, and started to get really stuck in to the actual main connectors. So we've covered the back panel, but I'm going to pause there for today before we engage with arguably the primary element, really, which is the CPU, and that will be followed by... It's a lovely section. It's a lovely section. There's a lot of fantastic diagrams of the CPU notches, alignment keys, retention knobs, PMP cap, thermal paste, CPU fan connector. Lovely illustration of the fan here, and how these things connect together. Various bits of important information. And that's before we even get on to memory, the mounting screw holes, power supply, expansion slots, video and graphics cards, and another, I must say, major section are the internal connectors. You couldn't have a military class motherboard without some significant internal connectors, and I'm talking about the SATA1 /6 SATA connector. But we cover all sorts of connectors. There's the CPU fan 1, 2, SYS fan 1, 3 fan power connectors, and there's system panel connectors as well, such as the JFP1 and JFP2, and there's various others. And then once we work through the connectors, which, like I said, is a fundamental element. The chapter concludes with jumper, which is a term, an electronic term. We're not referring to sweaters like pullovers here, so not that sort of jumper. This is a JBAT1, a clear CMOS jumper. And then finally, chapter 1 wraps up with drivers and utilities. So there's a few little elements there, and we even have a very nice screenshot, actually, of a piece of software which you can use once your PC is up and running to allow you to install drivers and utilities. And so this book is it's a 3-chapter book. We've got stuck into an element of chapter 1 today. Really hope you've enjoyed it. Please do let me know in the comments what you're thinking of this wonderful piece of literature. Would you like me to continue chapter 1? I mean, of course you would. But let me know in the comments. And then we have chapter 2, which is titled Quick Installation. It's so tempting to get stuck into chapter 2 here. The description of the chapter is wonderful. There's some important information here, actually. It designates. And then chapter 3, the third and final chapter. There are appendices, by the way. There's Appendix A and Appendix B. But chapter 3 concludes the main body of work. And chapter 3 is called BIOS Setup. BIOS Setup. And there's a little blurb there, a little synopsis of chapter 3 under the title name there. A lot of information in chapter 3. Chapter 2, very, it's a shorter chapter, very dominated by illustrations and such. Chapter 3, a little bit more meaty, considerably longer actually, and a lot of text there, all sorts of things. And then, like I said, there are 2 appendix. Appendix A is titled Real Tech Audio. Something I have used myself considerably when running the PC. So, of course, this PC is up and running. And I have to note as well that I've never had any issues with this motherboard. I haven't used this PC an awful lot over the last 6 or 7 years, actually. Felt like a bit of a waste of money at times, as I just wasn't able to actually use it. I've been moving around all over the place, not had really the opportunity, but it has come in very handy at times. And it is getting a lot of use at the moment, which is fantastic. Never had any motherboard issues, so as stated, top quality and stability, military class, and I think the title speaks for itself, really. It's a motherboard you can trust, as long as you're not in extremely humid environments or operating over 60 degrees centigrade, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, so and then Appendix B is titled Intel RAID, which sounds rather dramatic, but it is an acronym. Again, it's RAID. So we would have to read on there to get a little bit more information about exactly what a RAID is and the specific uses for that. So yeah, that concludes the reading for today. Really hope you enjoyed it. I'm just going to make a note of where we're stopping today as well. Okay. Yeah, I will stop there for today. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. So I'll say goodbye for today. Thank you so much for sharing one of my real modern favourites. I'm sure there are a lot of fans out there. Do let me know if you have other recommendations, maybe within the same genre. I would be fascinated to know. Okay, so you take care. Thank you so much for those 30,000 subscribers. Thank you for being a part of this community and for all the support. You look after yourself, wherever you are, whatever you're up to. And I'll read to you soon.